Hi, everybody. Welcome to Your Life Projectized, and welcome to the second episode of our special series. But this is actually episode 31, and it is called Roaring with a Purpose, Designing Unforgettable Moments at Sea. And the reason we have that specific title is because this series is to talk about Seminar at Sea, a project management cruise that is sailing out of Galveston, Texas, going to the beautiful Cozumel, Mexico. And on the line today, I have some of the incredible speakers that are going to be speaking on this. Oh my gosh, this incredible voyage, which I am so excited to number one, that I get to go on it, but I'm also so excited that I get to share a stage with these phenomenal individuals. So that said, let's get into introductions. Let me introduce you to our incredible speakers. So the first person I'm going to introduce, just because he's the first person I see on my screen, is Mr. Frank Saladis. Frank, firstly, did I say your name, your last name correctly?
That is correct. Saladis is the last name. Absolutely.
Okay, so Frank, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do.
Okay, well, I'll try to make it really brief. I worked at AT&T for 20 and a half years. Also worked at Cisco Systems for about 3 years. At AT&T, I was a national project manager. I also was a four-time president of the PMI New York City chapter. I've been doing a lot of training and consulting for the last 20, 25 years. Still pretty active with PMI. I became a PMI Fellow in 2013. I received the Distinguished Contribution Award from PMI in 2015, and I am the founder of International Project Management Day, a day of recognition for project managers. So that should be brief enough.
Wow, wow. So, firstly, how absolutely impressive of a resume you must have. So I love that. And Frank, love also that you're a fellow Northeasterner, because I think as you and I connected on previously, you're from New York. I grew up in Jersey, close to Staten Island. But I love the incredible work that you do. I love that you're a PMI fellow. And again, so very honored to have you here with us today. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay, and next, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? So, Dr. Prenza, again, I'm just looking at the screen. Dr. Prenza, you and I, of course, know each other very well.
Mm.
We both were on this exact cruise about 2 years ago, and that
Yeah.
cruise is how I had the honor of meeting you. So, Dr. Prenza, why don't you introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, thank you, Parmjit. It's a great honor to be here with distinguished gentlemen, a friend that I know, and Russell that I met in webinars, I think a couple months ago. So, Dr. Tony Prensa, originally I was born in Dominican Republic, then grew up in Puerto Rico when I developed my professional career in information technology. So I've been working in information technology for, I would say, 40 plus years in different roles. So I think that I had the bless of being working in IT in many roles. So I was a computer operators and then software developer, project managers, and also consultant. Traveling around different countries, providing system implementation and those kind of things. But beside my full-time job, I always have passion for sharing knowledge and teaching. So as soon as I got my bachelor degree, I started teaching at the university, very technical courses. As I grew up in the professional career, I have a couple of master degrees and then the PhD. So I started teaching other more management leadership courses that I do. So I'm also the founder of TP Global Business Consulting. These are consulting companies in project management, PMO, digital transformation, and a lot of the emotional intelligence things that I do because I like that.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me. So uh,
Awesome. Dr. Penza, thank you so much. Again, you also, I mean, your background is just incredible. Obviously, you and I have had conversations about, your start in the Dominican Republic, where you started, where you are now, and I'm just constantly so very impressed by you. So, thank you
Thank
also
you.
for being here today. Absolutely. And without further ado, Russell. Firstly, I am so glad that you're here today. I am so honored. Also, you are a veteran. So, first thing I want to do is thank you
Right.
so very much for your service, truly. So, Russell, why don't you tell folks a little bit more about yourself, other than the fact that you're a badass, right? You served in the military. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about
Yeah.
what you do and just who you are?
Yeah. So yeah, started off Russ Parker, and I am a retired U.S. Marine Corps officer. So that is how I got into management. Because on my way out the door, I found out that, project management and the PM or the Marine Corps planning process and project management like go together. Like I almost feel like some of the joint planning process manual has inspiration from the PMBOK. It's like that close in certain ways, especially when it comes to risk management. So after I got out, started working in the civilian sector, I think Tony just said, like I had a passion for teaching and just getting, working with people, helping. I like to teach, coach, and mentor. So I started 44 Risk PM, and now I'm teaching PMP courses, developing my own RMP course right now. And I blog, I do, I worked on the Pure Project Manager, if you haven't heard of that yet. I taught for that, and really just getting out into this world of project management, trying to join Tony and Frank out there and just make an impact in this world, trying to take from 20 years experience in the military and showing people how that translates into current project management.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Russell, right? So as a veteran, you've already made such an incredible impact, right, on the community. And I love that you are now also making an impact in the project management world. And I really appreciate that you mentioned, how closely project management aligns with what you did in the military. I've I know a lot of military members, and that is the consensus that there's just so much alignment with what it is that you all do in the military behind the scenes and with the project management space. So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Again, such a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Yeah, I'm gonna get right into it. So I have so many burning questions because, guys, I have you guys are the heavy hitters. And I feel so honored that you're all on this podcast because you all have just such a wealth of knowledge, of experience, and so definitely want to drill into some of these questions a little bit. And so, actually, Frank, I think I want to ask you a question first, and this is just related to, again, your project management experience. So if you could, Frank, just tell us a little bit about number one, how do you see because again, you've been in the industry for quite some time. So how do you compare where you see project management today compared to where it was maybe when you first got into the industry?
Well, okay. I think that's pretty straightforward answer on that. When I first got into project management, that the officially got into project management in AT&T in 1989. Okay. Prior to that, I was working on projects, and I didn't really know I was working on projects. Okay. And I think most people realize that, when you start thinking about what project management is, a lot of people say, I've actually been doing that for a while. So, when I first got into what we'll call real formal project management, that's what it was. It was very formal. It was very regimented, very specific. And the thing that, if I kind of really look back on, was that we were really interested in producing deliverables, output. Okay, the focus was on time, within budget, according to scope, get things done. And there was a number of processes that you had to follow when I first got started. I remember the number of process steps that we took in project management. There were 162, and it was everything was pretty much outlined specifically, and we were measured on that. Over time, we started to realize that we need a little bit of flexibility in our thinking. We need to maybe we don't need so many steps. Maybe we need to kind of lighten things up because when you put too much into process, people start to reject that. They start to say, "Yeah, wait a minute, it's too much work, right?"
Yeah.
Eventually, it evolved down to, believe it or not, about 68 steps from the 162, I think it was. And but the emphasis still was on time within budget according to scope. And if you missed any one of those particular measurements, there were consequences to that. And that's how project management was for quite a while. Not that long ago, I'm going to just say maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more. There was kind of like a revelation in project management that we shouldn't be producing just a deliverable and output, that we shouldn't be having an impact on what it is that we do. Whatever it is that you produced, we needed to start focus on, okay, so now what has changed? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where things started to really evolve now into, instead of output, it became outcome and impact. And that's still, going on today. And it is further involved to, I mean, right now, what's going on in project management is the creation of value. Okay. PMI uses the term benefits realization. You had a project, you completed the project. Okay. So where are the benefits? Who's getting the benefits? How do we know we're getting the benefits? And so now we have a little bit of not just project management. PMI looks at ways of working and power skills, but now we have business acumen, which is really, are our projects aligned with our strategic objectives? Did we pick the right projects and are getting the right outcome? And
Mm-hmm.
we really have a way to understand how we're going to see those benefits, either in the short term or the long term. So the I think the emphasis today, if we look at it as it evolved, it went from output to value, and value is really the big word today, and that's how I would look at things right now.
Yeah, and of course, right, and that's what your presentation is going to be centered around on the cruise as well. And I really appreciate you mentioning that, Frank. This shift to a value-driven approach. And I think in a lot of industries are shifting and recognizing that the emphasis on value and on outcomes, and not just in project management, not just you know completing those tasks, checking those tasks off, but what is the outcome? What is the value of that project? What value have you delivered? So really appreciate that. And so kind of changing course just a little bit, I have a question for you, Russell. And this is related to some of your military experience. So I'm really curious about this. I'm not, I've never been in the military. My most experience was being in the Navy ROTC in New Jersey, and I shot an air rifle once, and that's about it.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely interested to hear a little bit from you. So can you, Russell, share, of course, you have so much experience, but can you share a moment in your military career where that discipline that, right, every military member has helped you overcome maybe a project crisis?
Yeah, I mean, man, this, you know, really, I just want to jump what, Frank said, because I want to tie it back to the military too. Is when we talk about value, I think this could probably relate to what you're saying. Is you know, in the military, we've had this term. It's called the commander's intent.
Okay.
And across all the different services, we all use this. So when you think of like value, I think of commander's intent, where the commander tells me, I want you to go plan this mission. I want you to do whatever this is. And here's my intent behind it. This is how you almost like a definition of done type thing.
Yeah.
And you take that, and that's what you plan against. Because if I, was doing a convoy op, and I'm driving, and my commander's intent is to deliver so much without any maintenance issues, without any problems, and it's safe, and I get everyone back, but I have five maintenance issues. I have this. I may have completed what I had to do, but I didn't meet the intent of what he
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like this value piece. And when it comes to discipline, I mean, it's just driven into daily the all the project, the documentation, everything that we have to put together. That is very disciplined environment to sit there and update documents, update this small, and that's what really mattered in the military. Those small little things are the matter of life and death in
Yeah.
combat situations. You translate that over to project management, those small little things, updating that risk register every day, updating the project plan, moving that percentage from 15 to 40, like whatever it is, you got to just sit there and take the time to get it done. Focus on, create a time block and work on it. And so that's one of the greatest things that a lot of military people can bring over is that level of this is my mission. This is what I'm working on. Give me my guidance, and I'm going to work.
Yeah, no, and thanks so much for sharing that. And I would also say, and Russell, tell me if you agree or not. I think another similarity is in the military, there's so much structure, and I think right, and so similar to what you just said, right? We have these different artifacts that we're going to build. We have to have that discipline to make sure we're updating those artifacts, and even pivoting and building new ones if the project calls for it. But similar to the military, there is all of that structure, which I personally really, really love about project management.
Yeah, and there's structure, and then there's also the lack of structure sometimes, which I'm sure we all know when that applies. We still have that in the military. Sometimes you had to work, not as in, you had to work off the cuff sometimes, especially in those forward positions where decisions are a daily thing.
Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and giving us some insight into what it's like to again manage projects in the military and how those align with what you do today. And I'm so sorry. So I didn't realize, but Frank is also a veteran. So Frank, so
Yeah.
sorry, but so Frank is an Army vet. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
I love
uh,
that.
does, does Frank know what Army stands for?
What does it stand for?
It stands for aren't ready for the Marines yet.
Oh, oh. Oh man. Frank, are you gonna take that from him? By the way, Frank, I'm sorry, you're on mute, but are you gonna
Yeah.
take that from him? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
the
hilarious.
Marines, they have the high
Mhm.
eagles.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
No,
I love that.
I love the Army. I did I spent a year with the Army basically in a joint job. I was the only Marine, all
Oh,
full of Army and stuff, and I had a blast with them.
Oh. I
yeah.
I love it. I love fun acronyms, and so I don't. So I love fun acronyms. One of the ones that I use, and this has nothing to do with project management. It has nothing to do with the Marines. So I watch a lot of sports. I'm a New York Giants fan, and right. So we also have the New York Jets. One of my brothers is the New York Jets fan. My other brother is a Cowboys fan. I don't know where I went wrong, so please don't ask me. Um, but my brother, who's a Jets fan, I always tell him that the Jets stands for just end the season. So, so I love
That
that.
sounds about right.
Okay, so Dr. Prenza, so I have a great question for you. So you're speaking on something called the PMO value ring. a
Mm.
formula for PMO success. And I can't wait to hear you speak on this because I think it is going to be just such a value add. So I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Prenza, just based on your experience and just based on your perspective, what metrics do you feel best define PMO success using this model?
Yeah, so the PMO value ring, so that's what we are preaching now in PMI because
Hmm.
the framework came from an acquisition that PMI realized on basically in 2023. The PMOGA. So the PMO value ring was the framework that the community associated to the PMOGA because at the time it's a global community. So they
Hmm.
developed the 8 steps to establish and also elevate the project management office. But the focus of is like Frank was saying, and also Russell about the value added function of a PMO, because a PMO is I would say, is the wholesaler, and
Yeah.
projects are the retail. So basically the same concepts around adding value. And one keywords that we use is the strategic alignment. So based on that, all the metrics is about what values are we adding. And one of the
Hmm.
things that this framework add is the customer centricity. So the first thing that we need to identify who are the customers, and we need to develop services to provide a value to the customers. And all the metrics are around that, return on investment, the NPS also. So how can we measure the stakeholder satisfaction? That's an interesting metric.
Hmm.
And everything is about ROI. So how are we returning back to the organization what they invest in projects?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Great insights.
Right.
Uh, and Dr. Prince, so I have another question for you, and this is about so as you know, this cruise this year has a 1920s theme, right? We're doing a 1920s theme because this is the 19th, oh my gosh, 19th year of this cruise. And so, yeah, so we're doing a 1920s theme. So, Dr. Prince, I don't know how familiar you are with the 1920s. But in the 1920s, they had a lot of speakeasies. And so are you familiar with what a speakeasy is?
No.
Okay, so basically that was, and please correct me, folks, if I'm wrong. So during the 1920s, that was a prohibition era, and that is when they had banned alcohol. And because they had banned alcohol, folks obviously still wanted to drink. So
Mm.
there were these speakeasies, and basically you had to go into a speakeasy to get your drinks. But you had to have a code. You had to know the password to get into the speakeasy. And so
Oh,
when
okay.
you went into the speakeasy, they had like little teacups. By the way, New York Times, they had like little teacups, and in those teacups was alcohol, right? So because they had to disguise the fact that they were drinking. So
Oh,
yeah. So if, for example, let's say you were Dr. Preza to reimagine the PMO as a 1920s speakeasy, what secret password would get a project through the door and into success?
alignment.
Alignment. I love it.
That will be the secret there.
Okay.
The secret code. Yeah, so like Frank was saying, that's the modern project management, is to be aligned with the strategic objective of the organization. We don't do project for the sake of doing project. It's
Yeah.
because we adding value.
Absolutely.
Um,
And
in
I and I
alignment.
I love that. I love this theme that just seems to be going on here about value, value, value. And the customer centricity. I truly love that. I've been a client relations manager in the past, and I've always uh, adored the focus on the customer, really, which is, and the focus on value, because really that is where the focus should be. So again, kind of sticking to the 1920s theme a little bit, I have a question for you, Russell. I love my 1920s questions. So, if a roaring 20s bootlegger needed a project plan, how would a Marine project manager ensure that the mission was executed with both stealth and style? Because we all know Marines are stylish.
Yeah. All right. So if I had to get a bootlegger, okay. So I'm thinking at this point, I'm already thinking I'm thinking like special operations. Like we got to do this, quick, silent, and we got to move through this. So yeah, get the team together, tell them, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm thinking bootlegging. We got to move distances. Luckily, I come from the logistics side of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Therefore, I know how to move together, get them a good transportation plan. Obviously, we're trying to trick the cops. So, I gotta, you gotta have one go this way, one go that way. Two of them don't have anything. One of them does. He route. Yeah, you plan out the routes. Obviously risk management. So we're thinking about the cops. We're thinking about these, what obstacles we're gonna hit on, and do the stakeholder management. Who we got to link up with the plan. You got to always have that because you get down to you get over there, you got to make sure you have a signal back and forth. What are they going to tell me that I'm going to tell them? Kind of like the speakeasy piece. So I know this is the guy I need to talk to drop off the booze. So I think a Marine Corps and a project manager and put us together. We're the bootleg. So
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love
I
that.
literally just spit on that. So yeah, like I think that's definitely a good planning effort there.
I definitely think so. I think so. And I love that you're going to work with the person running the speakeasy to get you guys over the finish line. Oh gosh,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
great.
you gotta have a code. You gotta have a code word.
You
If
have
not,
to.
if they don't use it the right way, then I know I gotta walk away. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that, Russell and Dr. Prenza. So now we all know the code work alignment. So when we're on the cruise, if there's a speakeasy, that is the code word we're going to use to get
Exactly.
in and get some drinks.
Okay.
So, so Frank, I'm gonna I want to stick to, I really want to stick to this 1920s theme just for a little bit longer. So I have a question for you. So if project managers in the 1920s were navigating the jazz age, right? Because jazz was so big around then. What kind of value delivery would you imagine them prioritizing? Would it be champagne? Would it be speakeasies or would it be secret networking?
Would it be last one is what?
Would it be networking? Networking is the last one.
Mm.
Okay, wow.
Frank, not just any networking, secret networking.
Secret networking. Well, I mean, I have to really think about how I would respond to that. Champagne, speakeasy, or networking. I'm going to guess that most people back in that time frame were definitely interested in speakeasies, and for a couple of reasons. One is you can get champagne there, and you can actually network too. So put them all together, and then you have a nice place where you can, since they're doing something that needs to be done behind closed doors, they can share their secrets on how they're going to plan out how they're going to deliver their products and services, and share some ideas. So I'm thinking that uh, the secret word alignment, get in there. My secret word, by the way, would have been something like method, to get in. And then once they're in there, they would start asking each other questions about, how are we going to keep this protected? And Russell mentioned something that I thought about also when you asked that question, and that was first thing I talk about is risk management. Okay, what's our backup? Suppose the police come knocking on the door. What's our backup plan? And you mentioned teacups and booze in the teacups, but they were actually very sophisticated in their ways to protect their clients. So if they did happened to get a break in, they actually had a pretty good contingency, and they were very quick to turn that whole thing into something like a tea party. They also had secret exits and so on, and everybody pretty much knew what the contingencies were. So, they're playing that jazzy, 1920s music. They're sipping on their champagne or whatever. They're networking, and all the time they're doing that, they're thinking about, okay, if something goes wrong, what's our backup plan? So I think you put that all together, and you got some pretty creative project managers out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying that, Frank, I'm legitimately picturing a speakeasy and thinking about the different conversations they're having and the the secret conversations they're having about what if the cops show up? What are we gonna do? Who's gonna take the heat? If one of us has to go down, who's gonna be the one that goes down? I absolutely love that. So I have another question for you, Frank. And so, kind of going back to the theme of value, because you are the value individual. So, can you share a time when focusing on value over process, right? Because you talked about process before, transformed a project outcome?
Focusing from output to outcome and value.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that even though project management for many, many years, and Dr. Tony was nodding when I was talking about it, it was really about on time within budget and so on. And I kind of learned some lessons from my boss in project management when I first got started, and he had a quote that kind of stuck in my mind forever and ever. And he said, "Go slow now so you can go faster later." And that was basically let us not, use that term hit the ground running because you're going to get out of control fairly quickly. You're going to start to make mistakes and you're going to start to lose the value that you were trying to create in the first place because now you have to regress. You got to back up. You got to repair. You got to fix. And that actually gives a major, more negative impression of your customers when you're constantly in a backup mode and a recovery mode. So our organization really focused on two factors that we as a professional organization, and he insisted that we looked professional, that we acted professional, that we were consistent in our output. So the underlying message always was quality and value. It never was just output. I mean, we had measurements and performance statistics to deal with in KPIs, but the emphasis was more on image, reputation, and producing something that the customers are going to want to come back for. So that was how we were, kind of conditioned. That was our orientation and that became our theme. And because of that, we were very, very successful. That we did have, processes in place. We had things called PMGs, project management guidelines. We were visually a very professional, organized organization, and people would go to us and say, "Hey, we could use you guys, on the projects that we work on," and so we made an impression. So, if you look at the bottom line, yes, we wanted our projects to be completed on time and all of that, but we
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to make sure the customers were super happy with it so that they would come back again. And I think that any project manager should be focusing on that. Do the job so well that your customers not only appreciate whatever the product is that you provided, but the way in which you got there. Okay. And that means how you treated your team, how you communicated, how you solved problems, the image, the reputation of the organization, all of those things kind of packaged together into what we would perceive as value.
Yeah, definitely. And I love all of those different components that you mentioned because yes, all of them are so honestly they're critical. And I also like Frank that you said, do the work up front. And so in the planning stages, and I know a lot of depending on the project, a lot of folks do rush sometimes into execution. And I think unfortunately, I feel that when you don't take the time up front, it leads to a lesser quality product. But I also think that it leads to burnout, your project teams. If they haven't had time to really prepare and maybe create their artifacts and really understand the project, the scope, the goals, I think that yeah, I think that leads to they're just an unhappy project team, unhappy stakeholders. So really, really in agreement with all the things that you mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Russell, I have a question for you also, really quickly, and then Dr. Prenza, I just have so my mind. If any of you know how my mind works, it's always going, always going. I have just so many thoughts. So Russell, just a quick question for you. So, how do you encourage resilience and structure without becoming rigid? And one of the reasons I really wanted to ask you this question is so in my brief time in the ROTC, actually no, not that brief. I was in the ROTC for 3 years. In my time in the ROTC for those 3 years, right, there was a lot of rigidness, right? Structure, formations, never talk back to the commander, don't you dare. Right? So there wasn't really
Cleanest. You need to be clean.
I will share I wasn't his favorite person because I didn't like taking orders. I really didn't. I don't have a problem with authority, but uh yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I was also a teenager, right? So we don't listen anyway. But
Yeah.
just based on your experience, how do you overcome that rigidness, right? And encourage, resilience and still encourage structure, but while having a little bit of agility.
Yeah. No, I think this is a key point that I'd like to talk about when it comes to the military. Because when I first was getting out, I had an interview that kind of went like this, where they're like, "Well, you're coming from the military. Can we need someone that can make decisions on their own. Can you do stuff like that?" Like, I'm like, yeah. Um, so yeah, we have a structure in the military. There's a rank structure, bottom down or top down. You have the commander. The commander has his O, the XO, then you have the enlisted sergeant major. Those trickle down. You have company commanders and platoon command leaders all the way down. So you know who you report to all the way up and all the way down the chain.
Hmm.
But you get into something like what we've seen for the past 20 years, and I think this is really applicable these days. But he had to things down to what a term that came out there, the strategic corporal, right? Where the lower levels had strategic decision making at their fingerprints, or like at their fingerprints, where so
Hmm.
any action they did on the battle can impact strategic alignment with the op forces across Iraq and Afghanistan. So when it comes to being resilient in working this, is that you be able to communicate what you're working on.
Hmm.
You be able to make sure everyone understands what are the goals, going back to almost the value piece. What
Hmm.
is the commander's intent? Let's talk about value we're trying to get. So that way, when I'm not around as the PM and you and your tech team are working and a problem comes up, the first thing you can think of is, well, how am I providing the value? And then you can almost work your own decision making that way. That's the whole intent behind it, is that lower levels should be able to make a decision, know we're trying to meet the value of what we're trying to bring at the end of the project. And also I think about, you know, the whole cross training. You never want that single point of failure. That's
Mm-hmm.
something like I've always preached because, you always have limited people. In the military, we have limited, you know, there are certain jobs that just one or two people are doing in your unit, and you can't let failure happen because they're busy, they're on leave where, or they get injured and they're gone from the operation forces. Someone has to be able to take their place. And I think that's something I bring with me even today because one way you get me like all riled up is if you tell me, well, we can't do that because this guy's not here. You're like, that's not really an answer. Like, we need to figure out how to get that work done. So I think when it comes to overcoming that structure, is you got to have the structure for reporting. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to working, everyone everyone's working together. You're working together with team. You're cross and you're working on bringing that value at the end of the day.
Right.
That's the way I kind of look at it.
Definitely. And you have to that because number one, we don't want to ever piss Russell off. So we also want to plan, right? Ensure that we're planning that if that
I'm
team
actually a nice guy.
I would trust me, I believe it. I don't think there's a mean bone in your body, Russell. I was gonna say, but right. I would think that on my project team or in my projects, right, that if I know that, let's say this thing is this deliverable is due on this date, and I know one of my team members, there's a chance that they're not going to be here. That maybe they told me, maybe they didn't, maybe it was unaware, maybe they got sick all of a sudden, right? I need to make sure that I'm doing things on the back end to prepare that if one of my team members is unavailable, that that deliverable is still being met. Because you don't want to go to the client and say, well, I'm sorry. I know we said we're going to furnish this deliverable today, but Joe Smith didn't show up today, or
Uh,
Joe Smith is out sick today. So, right. So, right, you have to take that into account. So I really appreciate that. So,
yeah, yep, totally agree.
yeah, definitely. So, and Dr. Prenza, so I have a question for you about this is really a little bit related to the PMO. So, what is a common mistake, Dr. Prenz, that you see when organizations are trying to prove the value of a PMO? And one of the reasons I ask this, and I feel like every single one of us has probably experienced this. I hear this, oh my gosh, I hear this all the time, where an organization, I'll give an example. So I worked for a company, and I obviously I won't mention the name of the company. I worked for a company and we had a PMO, and senior level management did not see the value in the PMO. They didn't. And they said, well, we could manage the project. We could take care of A, B, and C. And they just did not see why a PMO was so valuable in number one, the structure, but really giving oversight, but also giving a bird's eye view into all of the different projects that were happening in the organization, the ROI, the value. And so anyway, that's it. So what is a common mistake that you think that organizations make when, so let's say I'm the organization and I'm getting some pushback from some seniors and who, similar to one of my former organizations, does not see that a PMO is valuable. How would I, or how should I, number one, express why it's valuable and what mistakes should I avoid?
Yeah, I think that the most common mistake, I think, come from the past because, as Frank was saying, as a project manager, basically we didn't have like a structure, we didn't have processes or methodology. Um, that's when the organization started thinking about, so we need a structure, an entity that establish those processes because that was in the 80s, the 90s, everything was process oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But now the organization does is a given. So everybody has processes. That doesn't have any value. What happened with project management offices that fail is that they focus too much on establishing governance and establishing processes, templates, selecting tools, and that's it. I did my job. So every time that I talk to someone in charge of the PMO, they say, "Oh, I already done. So I already established all the maturity or all the process, or we are in a maturity level 3, or we are almost 4." But because they just added a lot of outputs, like Frank was saying. So the organization, they don't care about that. That's the problem. So it's like in organization, they look for people that don't require supervision. So the same in PMO. So why we need a department, a headcount just to control project managers. So a lot of executives they say, but if you need a PMO, hire better project managers that they are self-sufficient. They know what to do. So they
Hmm.
don't need a supervisor just overseeing what they do and collecting data, asking questions, create reports, and pass on to the executives. So that's the vision that most of the executives have about PMO, that they are just note takers. They don't have values. I asked Russell because he's the project manager. Tell me where you are, all the status of the project, collect data, put it in a beautiful report, and send it to the executives. So there's no any value on that.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that. So I would say, Russell, you are responsible. You are the project manager. You have information, collect the data, and pass the information in this format to me. So we don't need an intermediary like the PMO. So that's the problem that we are facing with project management office.
Yeah, definitely. And Frank shared, a PMO really should be a value center,
Yeah.
right?
So the problem is that I said to a lot of people, let's stop playing with frameworks, with methodologies, agile versus a predictive, scale agile, now AI. So we like to play with a lot of toys, but those are
Yeah.
toys. So we need to focus, Frank is saying, in what add value. So. Uh, I always refer because PMI established the talent triangle, but the talent triangle apply also for PMO. So
Hmm.
the base of the triangle is business acumen. So we need to switch our mind to be business thinker. So we need to resolve business problems, not project problems, business problems, and that's how we're gonna become. In a impact machine. That's the another word that we are using, impact.
Impact. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's another, excuse me. That's another common theme lately, impact, right? And so really happy that you mentioned that. Such an important word. Um, and so and thank you so much, Dr. Preza. I absolutely love your insights.
Okay.
So, Frank, I have a quick question for you. As a project manager, and I think a lot of project managers that are going to be listening to this episode, I think a lot of us are going to get value from your response to this. But how can we project managers, right, advocate for value-driven approaches in the organizations that we're working in that might be focused solely on deliverables? How can we advocate for those value-driven approaches?
Hmm.
And Frank, you're on mute.
The way I would address that is that, well, I have kind of a value equation. And the first part of that would be if you produce value, in other words, your customers see that you are providing something that they can use, something that's beneficial to them, and also that your custom company sees some benefit. That drives the next level or part of it, which is now brand and recognition. If you are the organization, the project manager, the team that actually produces a successful outcome to your project. And now you have people that are satisfied, and I should say not satisfied, but delighted with your output, your outcome. You now have increased your brand recognition. When you are increasing your brand recognition and people come back to you because of your value that you have provided, you now have organizational success. And then in order for you to sustain organizational success, you have to continue to produce value. So it is a cycle. I have to produce value, which will increase my brand, which indicates that I'm successful, which means in order to stay successful, I got to produce value. And I profess something, well, Tom Peters, a management guru of the 1980s, he said this in one of his presentations in one of his books. He said, quit doing less than excellent work, but you have to work like hell at it. But the point here is, and there's another book, Good to Great, and the enemy of great is good. So my advice to project managers is, what would you rather be? Someone that is a reputation is they're pretty good, or they're excellent. And, that's the choice you have to make. So if you are excellent, that carries through and it'll be great for your career. It'll be great for your customers. It'll be great for your organization. So the focus is on continue to find ways to improve, use the plan, do, check, act cycle of continuous improvement and keep going up and up and up and find things that you can do that you would like to be excellent at and keep at it. And I think that if everybody had that attitude, many organizations would be far more successful than they are today.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I agree. And as you were talking, Frank, I was thinking about so I was thinking about myself as a customer and which companies I've continued to buy from, or which organizations I've continued to engage with, and not necessarily in the project management space. I was so I'd ordered something from. I'll give you a quick example. So. Right? I like to buy a lot of things online. And one of the so every time I buy something from a company, right, I receive my product and maybe I just received the product that I ordered. So let's do a silly example. Let's say it's a candle, right? Let's say I order a candle and I get the candle and I'm happy. I got the candle. Great. That's what I ordered. I have a company that I ordered said candle from, but I didn't just get the candle from this company. Company A, I got just the candle. Company B sent me the candle. They sent me an extra gift, which I had no idea that there was an extra gift that they were going to include. They sent me a handwritten note along with the candle, thanking me for purchasing from them, telling me how they are committed to excellence in serving their customers. And because Company B went that extra mile, they are the ones that I go back to over and over again. And even if, let's say, I maybe like the smell of the candle from Company A little bit better, because Company B went that little extra mile and did those additional steps, they might be the company that I will purchase from again and again because I know that they don't just want to sell me a product or a service. They genuinely care about my experience and my happiness. So I love that you mentioned that. So we're getting close to the end of our time. So I have a final question for each of you. And this is a question that I ask each of my guests. So I'll start with you, Frank, because since we were just talking. So thinking about Frank as a little boy, what did little Frank want to be when he grew up? And you're on mute, Frank. Frank, you're on mute.
It had nothing to do with project management at all. When I was growing up, my father was a guitar player, and he was in a country band, and I learned to play the guitar because he was a guitar player, and I always envisioned myself as playing in the Grand Ole Opry someday. So, you know, so that was me as a little boy. As I grew up, I kind of really got much more interested in the military and things like that. And I found a natural fit when I went into the Army. It was a good fit for me. But I'm still a musician, and so I'm still living my original childhood dream. And I even wrote a song about Project Man and put it on YouTube. It's called the Project Manager Blues. So if anybody's interested, they can listen to more of the fun side of project management by listening to my recorded song called the Project Manager Blues.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Interesting.
that's great. I was into music when I was growing up too, and I recently when I moved to Vegas, I picked up playing the drums and playing the guitar as well. Really a fan of that. So Frank, I will ask you for two favors. If you wouldn't mind, of course, once we end our session at some point, if you wouldn't mind sending me, so you mentioned a few books, a few resources. If you wouldn't mind sending me the names to those books again, because I definitely want to make sure that I share those with our the audience. But if you wouldn't mind sending me a link to the your YouTube guitar playing video, I would love that.
I'll be happy to do that. I can always use more hits. So absolutely.
And then it goes back to right the value add, right? So not only does the audience get to listen to this incredible episode, they get more value because they get to I will share links to these books, but they will also get to hear Mr. Frank Saladis play the guitar.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So Russell, same question. What did Russell Parker want to be? What did little boy Russell Parker want to be when he grew up?
Honest, I wanted to become a Marine. So my
Yeah.
at 10 years, it sounds goofy, but at 10 years old, I joined a junior ROTC called the Young Marines. And I knew in that program I wanted to be a Marine. And my goal, become a Marine and fight for the country. I accomplished my life goal at 19. So therefore, everything else was just, it was icing on the cake for me. I mean, I got to lead 300 Marines as a company commander. I got to be a part of some really amazing things in almost military history. So, that was everything I really wanted to do with my life. Sadly, it ended because of medical condition. So I didn't even get to end it on my terms, or I'd probably still be in, to be
Yeah.
honest. And but now, like, yeah, that's what I love about project management, though. Like, it's still a community, and it's not quite that community I had in the military, but it's becoming something where I walk around with project manager probably just as proud as I do as Marine sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm sorry that you had to leave for medical reasons, but truly thank you so much for your service, for the time that you put in. I think anyone who serves is absolutely just incredible. I always think it's an honor speaking to a service member. I wanted to join the Marines at one point. So when I was in the Navy ROTC, I wanted to join the Marines, and I can't remember. I believe it was Bloomfield, New Jersey. I'd gone to a Marine recruiting office, and they told me that girls cannot fight on the front line. At least that's what I was told. This is how I remember it anyway. Anyway, I think I kind of fantasized about being a Marine and being on the front lines, and but the fact that I was told I couldn't fight on the front lines, it kind of t turned me away. But honestly, my parents wouldn't have let me do it anyway. I come from a small Indian family, and they said girls don't do that. So,
Yeah. Well,
so
good thing
But
is, I mean, especially in the past 20 years, it didn't matter where you were at. So, women, females, males, we all fought together. So
yeah,
I know some
absolutely.
pretty bad, I know
yeah.
some pretty badass females.
I will say the same. So yeah, same. I know some pretty strong females who've been in the military, and I would not want to mess with. So so
Yeah,
Dr.
me
Prince,
too, trust me.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, Dr. Prensa, same question to you. What did Dr. Prensa, what did you want to be when you were a little boy and you imagined what you would be when you grew up? What did you want to be?
Yeah. I think that all of us are in the same mindset. I think the common denominator is to helping people in different, I would say, venue. In my case, I wanted to be a doctor in medicine, no, doctor in management, doctor in medicine, because that's the I saw when I was a young kid that that's a good way to help people, and that was my passion to be a doctor in medicine. But I took the another path in technology. It is very different. But what I'm doing right now, I think to make an impact in other people and helping them, and that's the legacy that I'm working. So in certain way, I never continue in the path of studying medicine. I still love the medicine, specifically cardiologist. That's what I wanted to be a cardiologist.
Wow.
But
Well,
that is
I oh I'm even though I mean you still can technically. I mean, I don't know if you want to spend all that time in school,
it.
but
The other day I saw, don't remember in what country, but there was a lady, I think 80 plus, and she graduated from, she got her diploma. So,
wow, wow.
yeah.
Well,
But the thing is that this profession is very solving project management. So it's like every day you need to learn something new.
yeah. Yeah.
I haven't taken the time, but what I'm gonna do, I think, before I die, is to get a degree in psychologist. I wanna know more about humans.
Oh, lovely. Well, if you do, you'll have to let me know so we can all celebrate you getting yet another degree. So
Yeah.
terrific. Well, what I'm getting from these responses is, oh, what's come across to me is that you're all in servant leadership. And that is what you all wanted to do. You wanted, in some capacity, you wanted to serve others. And I absolutely love that. I just that resonates with me so much. And I will say that even though you are still a musician, Frank, you did live out your dream of becoming a Marine. And Dr. Prenza, even though you're doing something different than being a cardiologist, you are still impacting lives, and you're still helping people. So I think that each of you is exactly where you needed to be, and that's in servitude of others. And I love that each of you are doing that because the world needs you. So truly appreciative of that. So that said, yeah, we're at the end of our time. This has been such a fun conversation. Whoever said project managers are boring? Obviously, he never met us.
Can I add one more thing before you
Yeah.
close out
Yeah,
real
yeah, of
quick?
course, of
You know,
course.
I put it in the chat, how many kids, when they're asked, actually say, I want to be a project manager when I grow up. No one's going to, I've never heard anybody say that. But part of the reason why that is because project managers, when they are asked, what do you do for a living? Project managers will often say, well, I'm a project manager. And people will start rolling their eyes like, oh, okay, and they'll find somebody else to talk to because that sounds pretty boring. So my message, and I put this up on LinkedIn some time ago, is don't answer the question, I'm a project manager. Use something much more creative, like and if you think about Russell, what he was doing in the Marines, if somebody says, what do you do for a living? Answer, I am leading a team of professional people, and we're going to create a major product that is going to change the world. That is going to get somebody to say, wow, what's that? As opposed to saying, I'm a project manager. I mean, come
Exactly.
on, you're doing amazing things. So tell people that you're doing amazing things.
Yeah.
You know, don't say I'm a project manager. I am building the largest building that was ever created at 120 stories tall, and it's going to house 10,000 people and whatever. You know, be excited about it. You know, that's what we have to do, if you ask me.
Well, that's a great thing, Frank, because it's changing the language. Because the same happening in the PMO space, that people they don't talk about the outcome, the end result, what you're building, what you're gonna deliver, what the value. So it's changing the language. And as you said, you are building this bridge to connect this city with another city and going to expedite the traffic or the movement of people from point A to point B. So talk about the outcome, not the
Just be
process.
excited and enthusiastic and get people to say, wow, I'm going to do that too. So
Yeah.
that's how I would approach it. And that's what I think all project managers should approach it like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and we wear so many different hats. So it's not just being a project manager, right? We're firefighters, where I think on PMI, on one of my PMI mugs, it says cat herder, right? We do so many different things, and our role is so exciting. Somebody actually, just to kind of close off, somebody asked me yesterday, I told them I was a project manager, and they said, "Oh, well, what is it that you do?" And they asked me, "Well, is it monotonous?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? Being a project manager? No." I said, "As soon as I finish one project, I move on to another one, which could be completely different." I said, "Being a PM is so much fun, and it keeps me on my toes." So I love that you mentioned that. Totally agree. Well, again, this has been such a phenomenal conversation. I want to thank you again for your time today, for being on this podcast, and for the value, right? Keyword for the value that you have delivered to our audience today. And so, for folks that are listening, again, these individuals, these wonderful gentlemen that are on the call today are going to be at a seminar at sea, sailing out of Galveston, Texas, going to Cozumel, Mexico. But these are not the only speakers. As you saw on the last episode, there were a few other folks speaking. And the next and final episode of the Seminar at Seas podcast series, we're going to have a few other phenomenal individuals, including Lee Lambert, one of the founders of the coveted PMP certification. So you don't want to miss it. And just before I go, just want to touch on what each of these incredible speakers today what these incredible speakers on today's call are speaking about. So Frank is speaking about value-driven project management. Russell, our Marine here, our vet here, is speaking about, and of course, Frank's a vet as well. Russell is speaking about lessons learned from a U.S. Marine turned project manager. And Dr. Prenza is speaking about PMO Value Ring, a formula for PMO success. So if you're looking to get PDUs, looking to increase your project management knowledge, hear from some of the greats in our industry, you definitely want to attend. And not only do you get to hear these great insights, you get to party in the evening and participate in a 1920s theme. So if you're in for fun and education, please do join us. Again, thank you guys so very much. This was such an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here and sharing this great moment.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for allowing us to be here and sharing some thoughts.
So welcome.